This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, this is the Historic Review Committee for March 4th. I'm call the meeting to order at 11:04. David Meixel is going to be absent today. I'm not sure about Bruce, but we could get started. Do we have enough to hear? I guess I'm going to have to, I will seat both of you, Dennis and Greg, to vote in the absence of the other two members. Let me just put that down. And could I hear a motion to approve the minutes of Friday, January 14th?
So move.
Okay,
Second.
all in favor? Any corrections or any discussion? Greg? Oh, all in favor? Okay, aye, all set.
Aye.
Beautiful. So we don't have any active applications right now, but I wanted to just have a general discussion, and we sort of already started one about that one property. But Greg, you brought up a property that is in play right now that has the Titus Cone birthplace on it. Did you want to share that with everyone? I know there's not a house there, but there is a site that is historic.
Elizabeth, I think possibly that property may have transferred already, but I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
So,
That's okay.
for anyone who knows, Titus Cohen's birthplace is on the Titus Cohen Road on the Route 80 side, as the road no longer goes through since the hurricane of 1980 something, 2, not sure. And that it's the former Sarah Shepherd farm, and that White Hollow farm that she passed away, unfortunately. And the farm is up for sale, and the for sale sign says pending. But according to the town records, it's been transferred to an A. Boone. So I'm not sure.
Interesting. Let me share my screen here, and we'll take a look at.
But Old Lyme has had this problem. They have a piece of property that shares waterfront, and the people and the first selectman in Old Lyme claim that there's a right of way there, but the property owner claims there isn't a right of way there, and now without any proof, it's a he said, she said deal, and the town of Old Lyme, they're going to lose that right of way that they claim they have. So I hate that happen to us.
So you think we do have a right of way? Because I didn't see anything in the deed, so we need to do some work on that.
It's an abandoned road.
Yeah.
That used to be Titus Cohen Road. It used to go through over a bridge and come out the other side onto where Titus Cohen comes out to Ironworks.
Right.
So I'd hate to lose, Titus Cohen's birthplace is kind of one of the few. It's a treasure of Killingworth, a historical treasure.
Yeah.
So I think we have to look at the road. If the road's been abandoned, then I believe that the abutters own half the property line becomes half of that abandoned road. Is that how it works?
But it also might be a part of the land trust. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
It is a part of the White Trail. It is blazed white. But in order to get to the White Trail, you have to go through the property. There's a lot of lines that are unclear.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think of the best way to approach it and who to talk to about that.
I would approach the land trust, obviously, and I'm not sure who else. And do we plow that road, Elizabeth?
Pardon me?
Do we plow that road?
I don't believe so. If it's abandoned, no. It's not a town
Well,
road.
there's 2 houses on it.
Pardon? If it's a private road, I'll have to ask Walt what certain sections of Titus Cohen we plow, but I don't know how far down they go.
Well, this is the section on Route 80 side.
Yeah, I think they go down to the end to her property. So.
Because when I read the charter that you had, that someone pointed out, the pages 82 to 86, that Titus Cohen's birthplace is listed as one of the places we're supposed to protect.
Right, it is, yeah, I just have to figure out. if we still have access to the road on the Lanter side, it's still a matter of the property. There's still the part of the property from the road to the parcel. And if there's not already an existing right of way, we have to try to get one, try to, create one. Right? So,
The only thing I
just
can,
kind of hoping. Go ahead, Dennis.
oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Elizabeth. I was just going to say was that the portion that comes out on Ironworks Road has been maintained, I know, by the town. I mean, that's been
Right.
the other end, although it does have the other end on Route 80 has a road sign that says it looks like a Killingworth road sign, but I can't be certain as to what where that falls into being a town-owned road. I don't know.
Trying to I want to share my screen, but I don't want to share my.
And for our purposes, we really only care about the side on Route 80 because the other side isn't in our jurisdiction, doesn't have anything to do with what we're talking about.
All right. So can you see? I don't know what you're seeing here. Can you see what we've got here?
Looks good.
Yeah.
Okay. This is what I was trying to share. So this is not this is the parcel, right?
Connecticut Water.
No, let's find it. I put in 90 Route 80, which I thought was the address here. Here we go. This is what we want. So where is the site? Where on here? Do you know?
Yeah,
Closer to
so
Route 80.
where Titus Cohen Road ends,
In
it's
here?
literally like, about 1/8 of a mile on the right-hand side.
So it's right around it. So it's just off of this thing.
Yeah, it's a little further past it because as the road ends, that's where it is.
And then so this is Connecticut Water. And let me go back to this now. Yeah, so I'm imagining that it wouldn't be difficult to get some kind of permissions to maintain access, but I'll have to talk. I was hoping Tom would be here today to talk about this as from wearing his planning and zoning hat, not his historian hat. Because yeah, we certainly do want to try to be able to still get at that. So I have never seen it. So it's it's like a plaque and a rock and a little area, a little site, right, Greg?
There's a foundation to the house.
Oh, okay. Okay, so full foundation there. That's even better. All right. Well, I will make note to talk to Tom about that. And if the property has already changed hands, it might be a matter of inviting the owners to learn about the site if they don't already know. And maybe this could be done in an easy, friendly way to maintain the access. Yeah. So I'll talk to Tom next on that. I can't imagine that would be a problem, depending on what they plan to do with the property. So, and if you said that was Boone, that might even be one of the abutters. Let's see. No. This is chunky. No. Let's see if no. We'll have to find out. I was hoping it was just one of these other people that was abutting the property, but it doesn't look that way. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention, because that's important. The other thing that's going on that I anticipate an application for is at Parmalee Farm. Behind the farmhouse, there's a small garage, and the Historical Society is building another barn to house artifacts and to hold gatherings, I believe. and it's rather large, and it's going to require moving the existing garage. The existing garage is I don't know exactly how old it is. I think from the 40s, but it falls into our world, and it's a Sears Roebuck plan garage. It still is a notable. It's still something that has some architectural significance, and we need to take a look at. So, the Historical Society has been made aware that they are aware that they need to come before this board. So we should look forward to that application soon. They're going to need to either dismantle it, move it. That's their plan, because they want to put this new barn in that site. Anyone have any thoughts about that?
Well, Elizabeth, I'd just like to comment, just so everyone knows, I am a member of the board, so it's just
Great. Great.
Just for the record.
Okay. Yeah, no, I was hoping to hear. I guess Linda Dudek happened to stop by the other day, and she said you were all. I had let Scott know just in case, but it seems like you were already planning on making that application.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As is Dave Mixel.
Yes. Yeah. He let me know that he wasn't going to make it today.
So do we know how much the garage, how far it would be moved? In which direction?
Dennis, you were there for that meeting, no?
Well, that actually was, I believe it came before the Parmley Farm Committee for consideration. So there was some discussion on that, which, obviously I was not present for any of that, but, that we've made some, I think, suggestions as to what it could be used for and where. What the final decision would be, left to the town and committee to decide.
The Parmley Farm Committee.
Parmley Farm Committee, I should say. So that's, I think, to the best of my ability, that's about where it stands. We're waiting to hear.
I see.
Okay. So the Parmley Farm, is the farmhouse is one of the buildings that we would keep an eye on, and I'm wondering if the farm itself as a site is also considered something on our list on that to pay attention. Whether altering the site needs to come before this board or not. Not quite sure about that. I'll have to look into that.
Well, if it required demolition, I guess theoretically it would, but in this case, it's a little different than the fact that it's, the suggestion is to dismantle it, to preserve it, or to move it. So it's sort of.
You mean the garage? The garage, yeah.
Garage thing, of course.
But there's still, you're gonna be touching the stone walls and stuff like that. And I don't know how much that comes into our world or not, but we'll have to look into that. Yeah, and I'll add for the record, this the Swenson property, Lucinda, is something that we need to try to get some information on and share it with the new owners.
Well, at this point, at the realtor, I think.
Or the realtors, yeah.
Yeah, I haven't checked to see, but I spoke to Jan probably 2 weeks ago, and she said it was listed, but I don't know if there's been a purchase or a transfer yet.
Yeah, I'll even look at the minutes of this committee, because I do think that some buildings on there came before this committee, so there might have been some work done already. And
yeah,
again, I'll also check with Tom on that.
Yeah, because I wasn't even sure what the address was to look it up to identify a real estate listing.
Yeah, okay, but it's good to know early.
Yeah,
it's good to have a heads up. That's super. Thank you. Any other properties that anyone's got on their radar that we might want to take a look at or keep an eye on? No, so those three are good. Next item, I put our outreach project. Lucinda and Joseph, would you like to give everybody a little update on your project?
well, just I wanted to let you know that I have reserved the library display case for August. The library was in the process of putting the schedule together for this year, so I just snagged that one. I didn't want it, there were some sooner, but I didn't want to put any pressure on Tom Lentz yet. So I thought between now and August, we could kind of formalize what that display should even look like and what we want to draw on for resources from the Historical Society. And Joseph has picked up the idea of having a map that would basically locate for us the historic properties that we've been working with in the survey. So that's where that piece of it stands. The other thing that we've been working on, he and I have been working on, is just identifying street addresses for those historic properties that were surveyed back in 1978 without the physical location being readily available through the maps. So he and I we each have half of the town and have worked on that. So what we do with that information to get it out so that, you know, we've talked about whether it's something that we would want to add to a street file or make available at the town level, the Historical Society, the library, I think. We haven't gotten any further than that.
No, you guys have made a ton of progress on that. That's fantastic.
I have a question about that. Since we have created this map with red dots in the location of all of these houses, which I presume we would display in the library at least, should we be reaching out to the owners of those houses to sort of tell them about our intentions to do that? In case somebody wants to make a comment or a suggestion, or maybe they should just be aware and given a chance to participate if they want to, or.
Well, so I put together a draft letter when way back, wasn't it?
Yeah.
October,
Yeah,
I think.
Yep.
With that idea to reach out to the owners using the street addresses that we were identifying, saying, you know,
Right.
this committee exists. This is what we do. That piece of it, Joseph, I didn't include, but I think that's something that in terms of our outreach project, we had talked about doing, and then I think that was sort of left hanging. But this would be more concrete because we'd be able to say, in August, we're going to display a map. Would you like to provide more information? Would you like to opt out? Whatever it might entail.
Right.
Yeah, that's great. I think if it fell through the cracks, that's probably on me for that letter. But yes, this is a better opportunity to bring it out to the public. Yeah, excellent. And Joseph, I didn't respond to you about your question about the GIS mapping because I was our assessor, Shauna, who's coming back from maternity leave, is our GIS contact, and I was hoping to talk to her. I have another project for Public Works that we're trying to put, identify where all the catch basins and guardrails are in town and put them on the map and have an overlay, be able to see where all those things are. So that would be the same process we would use to identify the houses as well. So I was trying to find out from Shauna how much, I know that Ty and Bond, our mapping company, will do anything for a fee, but I'm trying to find out what we can get done as part of our subscription to them for free. So I just was waiting another week for her to come back so I can pick her brain on that.
Sounds good.
Yeah, and that would be fun to be able to do that, to be able to produce a map with the historic houses.
That'd be great.
Yeah. So in the meantime, the one with the red dots on the other map it's remarkable to see the distribution of the houses. Do you mind if I share it, Joseph?
No,
Yeah, let me
please.
see if I can grab it. Just take me a second. All right, so how do I do this? Bear with me. Can you see this?
Yes.
Right. So I had always would have always assumed that all the houses were along in a couple of little pockets, but they're really very broadly distributed in town, which I thought was pretty interesting, you know, along the main roads.
Yeah,
This
you
is
can
from,
really see the settlements.
Yeah,
yeah. And this data was from 1978, is that right?
Yes,
and
that's
yeah,
when the surveys were done. Yeah.
and you would think that there'd be parts of town that had no houses in them, and there really aren't too many. So it's
Right.
really
You know,
pretty
it would be fun to identify where the schoolhouses locations were too, because I'm sure with the 8 schoolhouses scattered around the whole geography, there must have been clusters of settlements there for the children. They were walking for the most part. And there are probably other houses that no longer exist or were not included on the 1978 survey that sort of gives you a perspective of where people were coming, where children were coming from to go to those schoolhouses. And of course, now so many of the schoolhouses have been moved. So where they are now doesn't help us.
Do you think some of these dots are schoolhouses or not?
Yeah.
Or yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Some of the dots were schoolhouses because they were included in the listing.
In that
But-
book, yeah.
But for the ones I did, they were the addresses we were using were the current addresses or the addresses from 1978.
And they've
So-
since been moved, right?
They've been moved since, or they'd even been moved prior. So there's a
We could
couple of,
put, you know, original site and current site.
yeah, exactly. But I
yeah.
think that really gives you a sense of the settlement, the historic settlements of the town, which is, you know, the value of this when it gets displayed, because we could display this in the library and, you know, highlighting something like the schoolhouses, which is maybe a different display, or, you know, do that at a different time and have pictures of the schoolhouses in the display case. So that kind of thing would be fun, because I think people would really engage with the schoolhouse idea.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Speaking of the schoolhouse, though, and I should have brought this up when you asked it, if we have other concerns on historic properties. The Chestnut Hill Schoolhouse, which I drive by every day, is really, it's in its original location. It's the one that had the watchtower, the lookout tower on the top during World War II. But I'm getting really worried about the condition of that. And it's just privately owned on the property of the homeowners, real close to the road. But I'm noticing broken windows, and I don't know at what point we can sort of say to somebody, you know, that's a historic property that's worth paying attention to and preserving. If that's a historical society thing, if we gently approach the homeowners, I have no idea how that would work.
Right.
Yeah, it's always been an issue. It's always been a delicate issue.
Well,
Yes.
But the more we do, the more of these projects, the more publicity. And, you know, as Ken Wodach was keen on doing a lot more publicity for the Historical Society, and bring some of these things out to the public a little bit more.
I'm guessing at some point the town gave up ownership, which was not the case in all the schoolhouses.
Right.
In some cases, you know, they were sold and moved.
Right.
And just so much for that. But I have a question going back to the mapping. Is there a date that this goes back to? Is this based on a particular historic date of when these houses were located?
The original survey, Dennis?
Pardon me?
Are you referring to the original survey done in 1978?
Yeah. Was there a date that it went back to? So I mean, these homes that are shown here in their locations had to be at a certain time. And I'm wondering what that might be, because we have this map,
Right.
you know, you're familiar with. Was that what this is based on, or was it previous to that?
My understanding from reading the preface to this compendium was I didn't see any hard and fast rules. As far as it's going to be everything before 1900, for example. I didn't see anything like that. Did you, Joseph?
No, I didn't.
It would seem that it was almost, well, they do describe the process. There were teams of surveyors. This was funded through a project from the National Trust for Historic Preservation, or Art. It was sort of a post bicentennial 1976 project. So federal money was coming into all the towns, and they basically had a little outreach campaign saying, each town, identify your own historic properties, use this format, go out, and teams of surveyors would go out and say, you know, here's the architecture, here's the historic significance, here's the condition currently, features. So it was a little idiosyncratic, I think.
But it's existing structures that were
Right.
as of that date. So your map that you have, Dennis, may have houses that are no longer around on it.
Yeah,
For sure.
Yeah.
then there's a number of homes that were built on old foundations, you know, that burned and new or you know, replaced. So this
I bet those wouldn't be on here then. Yeah.
right, that's
Many
another.
of the survey mentions do say that it was listed under the ownership of the person's name in the, what was it, 1850 or 1870 maps.
This one is 1878, but there was one previous, I think 1850 or early 1850.
Yeah, and in several cases, they mention on the 1878 map, it was listed under the ownership of so-and-so. Or they've used those two maps for a date. It didn't show up on the 1851, but it did show up on the 1878 one. So therefore we date it between 1850 and 1878. So those two maps were, historic maps were definitely used in the survey compilation.
Oh, okay, I was just curious. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
I had another thought about the library display. That might be a good idea to provide some schematic information, perhaps about what these period houses look like, the pitch of the roof, what does a classic cape look like? I mean, there are lots of people who don't know these things.
Yep.
And if we sort of had drawings, for instance, showing the different styles and naming them, that might take it a little bit further towards educating people.
Right, so they could recognize them, right?
And we may have a series, I think, of displays, which would be totally fine. On the library board, my feeling has been that display case has been underutilized. I think it needs to be linked much more closely to Killingworth than it is sometimes. So we're free, and I keep an eye on these things, to say, every year we'll do a display in August, or we could do it more than once a year, or whatever. We have the opportunity to do that.
That's great. And and I do know, Lucinda, that Tom was in recently, and he is working on some information on the inn. He has been doing some work. So yeah.
Good. Yeah, as I think you had made a suggestion at one point, Elizabeth, that if one particular property was of particular timely interest, we could do a feature just on that.
Right. I think that's where we left it last time, and I think that's why he's digging into it.
I mean, it could be the Killingworth Cafe and the old the other property that's on, what was it called? The Country Square. So those two historic properties right there that were inns or were restaurants or have a ton of historical significance for one reason or another. We could feature something, the old inns of Killingworth, or just ideas, but I think there's a lot of potential for very engaging displays.
Yeah, and they could move once they get their time in the sun in the library, they could move to town hall. We could probably maybe do something like that.
Or have them be opportunities for displays at Parmalee. as needed. And you know, that
Right.
display case is quite small, but what we've done in previous times, we did the art show last year with the students from HK, and we spread out all over. You know, whenever there was a surface, the top of a bookshelf that sort of could be seen visually in the same, you know, purview, we can spread out. So we're not entirely limited to that small glassed-in case.
There is a small glassed-in case here in a conference room in town hall. If you wanted to build one, you know, you could before it's ready. You know, you could use it. You're welcome to use it.
I think part of the vision of this barn, at the Parmley Farm, will be to provide educational possibilities to expand on just this very subject, that we can have actual implements there, for example, farm implements and so forth, to help educate. And there's just a ton of things that's available that we just would love to get out there, because, I mean, you mentioned the architecture of, I mean, the capes that are in town here can be dated by some simple things, whether they do or do not have a ridge board. The rafters just come together, and as opposed to having a ridge board, which, you know, dates that house, and the overlap on the gable ends. It's just things that, you know, a lot of people are living in these homes have no idea, you know, what
Right.
Yep, you're right.
differences are.
Dennis, did Ken ever make that presentation? He's talked about doing it in January, but I don't know if he ever got to that, to tell him what we're
He did.
looking to do. Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, and yeah, you may be aware, we have in the past, you know, done a September educational program, like at the Green Schoolhouse for third graders. And, you know, again, these are areas that we will look forward to expanding on, you know, as time goes on, especially with the barn. That would be very, very helpful.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, and like you were saying, Joseph, that would be a nice evening program to talk about the different styles of buildings and how to recognize them.
That's
I
true.
think people might show up for something like that.
And the library is always looking for things like that for its adult programming. So that could easily be something we collaborate with the Historical Society on, or this committee.
Mhm.
As we have done in the past, Lucinda, you know, we've worked together on
Exactly.
presentations.
Yeah, during our 2017 celebration, there was a lot of that collaboration. So that's great outreach. I mean, you sort of get people interested who might not otherwise be interested with that combination.
The most recent one, of course, is with David Levasseur Revolutionary War presentation, which has now been postponed twice
Right.
because of COVID. So eventually, we hope to get that off the ground, because that'll be a very interesting presentation. Dave does a great job with that.
Yeah.
So logistically, it's hard for me to see how we work. What's our job as the Historic Review Committee and the historic, you know, so we're not working at cross purposes, so that we are collaborating, working together, and who's going to do what. That's what we have to sort out. Yeah.
Elizabeth, I have just a comment on, you know, as we look at the charge or the Historic Review Committee,
Mhm.
it specifically mentions buildings and structures, but like we just discovered, it doesn't, you know,
Right.
it could be property.
It could be property, it could be a site, it could be, yeah. So we're recently starting to pay attention to that. You know,
Is
we
that,
never,
you know, in that 1978, I guess it was, or no, whatever that large document that you sent out,
Yep.
it did specify sites, you know, some old
Yep.
mill sites.
Yep.
Which, you know, we know of, like the images as an example on Green Hill. You know,
Right.
it's a site, it's not a building or a structure.
right, the committee has sort of now finally changed completely, the composition of this committee. And in the past, these meetings were only triggered by a demolition delay from the building department. So us having regular meetings and starting to have these conversations has really brought all this out in the open, that we have a lot more to do than we used to do in the past. So we're going to be busier. But yeah, we just have to figure out how to work with the Historical Society and on some of these great ideas that are coming out.
Are there any updates with the Killingworth Inn? Was there, since our January meeting, any?
I haven't gotten anything about plans. There aren't any plans for renovation as far as I know right now.
Is the
That's
family who had a fire temporarily lodged there?
Yes, that was very generous of Mr. Berardino. He was housing them there. I think they had volunteers go in and paint and clean it up for the family. So they're there until their house is repaired, which is nice. But I don't believe there are any, I haven't heard even any grumblings of any plans for anything to be done to the building. But yeah, we still do hope that would be maybe our first feature of one building would be that the inn, and Tom's working to that end.
It looks like there's still, I believe, I drove by recently, there still is a for lease sign.
Yeah, I don't know what the story is. I haven't heard.
Even, I understand that there's actually a mural painting in the building there that was done by Carl Lauer's father. It was way back, which has some historic value.
Sure.
And there's something.
And they're working to preserve it.
Yeah, that's great. That's what I've heard too. Yeah, excellent.
That's the other tangent that we talked about briefly in the past. The definition of historic might not necessarily mean very old. And we may have things that we come upon that we want preserved that are more recent that might be historic in the future. So
that's why it's so important, I think, that we connect it with a very strong liaison with the Historic Society, because we're governed as a committee by language that comes from the town ordinances, right, Elizabeth?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, I'm not sure, unless we move to expand the language of the ordinance, we kind of have to stay, I would think, within a certain circumscribed area. But as we discover things, we move them on. I mean, refer them on to the Historical Society for their dealing with it, which I think is great. I mean, whatever works.
Well, I think that's the way it should go. Although the Historical Society is private, and we are a town entity, so it's we don't want to overstep, because we're not an architectural review board per se, although we in some degrees are. It's tricky. Yeah. I mean, if we are the eyes and ears and make sure that certain properties, if we turn things over to the Historical Society, that would be ideal, because then we're not overstepping. So
if you were to compare the mission statements or the charges or whatever you want to call them, in the bylaws, they're very similar. Mm-hmm. It's for the preservation of the town history, actually.
Perfect.
Yeah, our charge, the initial paragraph of our charge is very broad, but the actual ordinance is all about demolition stuff. So that's what's a little bit tricky. But we're lucky to have the Historical Society to do what we can't do or shouldn't do. Yeah.
Right.
Anything else? That's all I have on my list. That's a lot. We need to, there's some work to do. And I want to try to get Tom. I was hoping Tom would be here, but I'll try to meet with him separately about some of the questions that came up. Especially about, and I'll find out a little bit more about access to that Titus Cohen property.
So in the meantime, the binder that I have, which is half of the town, and Joseph has the other, I don't really like just having it here in my house. Because that's where all of the work that I did to locate these things resides. There's no electronic at this point way that I've distributed that. So I don't know at what point do we go through the process of scanning that with all the handwritten notes? What do we do with that to make it more accessible?
Do you want to bring it in and we'll take a look at it together? Will we have
Yeah.
this, did you see these new binders that the town clerks made for us with the pages? Did I show you those?
No, you mentioned them. I didn't see them.
So when you
Okay.
come in, every one of those pages is now in a separate sleeve. So you can
Okay,
add sleeves to it and incorporate more stuff to these binders, or I have to look and see what you have. But maybe we
But
could
they're-
get together.
but they're just hard paper copies. There's nothing, that has not already been scanned, right?
No, they are scanning it. That's
They're
why,
scanning.
that's why they made the binder for us. They had taken the book apart to scan.
Okay,
And so they had, since the pages were separated, she made a copies of them for us. So we
well,
have
that's
all-
great.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
So
It's two.
electronically, we will at some point have access to that. So, and then the question is, when we see what the original looks like, how do we amend it? How do we insert that electronically so that the new document says, 2022 added information, the street address, it's now demolished or whatever.
Well, that itself is its own record and we can't alter it. This is going
Okay.
to be a new document that's going to have, that will be compiled by, by us. So that will be a whole new thing. I think we can't alter anything that's in the
That makes
original.
sense.
Yeah.
So that's what we should do, is have a, if I were to do the next step with the paper binder that I have, I would take that scanned document and add some, I don't even know how to do that, but for each listing, add the current information that okay.
Yep.
So you and I can talk about that. Joseph, if you want to come in and the three of us could talk about how we do that so it's all consistent, that would be great.
That sounds good.
Yeah, because we can, we have the great scanner here. So I would imagine if we broke it up into sections, we could just replace sections, with new, bigger sections as we get more information.
Yeah, and I do think I've talked to a few owners of historic houses, and they have information they do want to share,
Yeah.
So it would be great. We talked about reaching out to people and asking that question, but just hit or miss. Oh, I found this, reference to a property transfer or whatever. So that would be fun to have a way to add those serendipitous finds to this document overall.
Yeah, Dennis, also, I don't know what this historical society has, but a neighbor of mine told me when a very young couple that moved in from the city, when they bought their house, somebody knocked on their door from the historical society and walked around and chatted them up about what they knew about their house. So there is a wealth of information about some of these houses. That would be nice.
You don't want to lose it.
Yeah.
There's actually, Tom has prepared something that's very interesting. When people do buy these homes, right away, they want to know all about them. And, ideally they'd like this, in some cases, they come to the Historical Society and say, what can you tell us? Well, that's not a simple ordeal. And Tom prepared a step-by-step process on how to do that, to research your home, which means they need to come to the town hall to do this, Elizabeth, permission to search through records. And I assume you've seen that happen. So, but
I've seen it happen, but I didn't know he did that. I didn't know he, formalized that process for
He's
people.
made it available because, as town historian, he was asked a gazillion times, to do this. And, it's just not possible to do that for people, regularly. So
Right. You've done that for your house, Joseph, right? You've done your title searches and everything, right?
Right.
And there are people who, that's their job. You can hire historical house researchers to probably use a format similar, Dennis, to what Tom did. This is the step-by-step process. We had a historic house when we lived in northeastern Connecticut, and it involved going into church records that were at that point consolidated in Hartford, the Congregational Church Repository of Records that had been sent by the Brooklyn, Connecticut Congregational church, you know,
Wow.
so there were a lot of steps to it. And we had fun with it, but you can hire people who actually do that, which would be, you know, another whole formalization of the process.
Correct.
It could be a high school internship. There's you can go. It
Yep.
could be a community outreach, community service project for kids. They have to do more and more of that kind of stuff these days. So
True.
yeah, could be great. We could get a lot more information out there.
Yep.
All right. This is a good conversation. It won't all be in the minutes, but it'll all be on tape.
Well, it's good to
For the
just throw
future.
these ideas out there
Yeah.
because as you've said, Elizabeth, we really, I mean, since I joined the committee, I don't know, 2 years ago, maybe, it's really changed and it's so much more interesting and exciting and productive, I think, with this perspective that's now coming out.
Yes, which is very exciting for me, and it also induces panic because how we're going to do all this. But,
Well, it hasn't been done for, I mean, anything we do is a plus, right?
yes, absolutely.
Better
No,
than
we've done a lot, and it's been really fun to have all of you and lots of new members and a lot of new energy. So it's really been so much more fun to do. So all good.
Good.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a pleasure to be part of this committee, and I do appreciate that because I find this all interesting. To myself, as you may or may not know, I'm born and brought up here and go back many years family-wise, and it's all interesting.
We're happy to have you, and you and Greg, for brand new members, have brought a lot to the table already. So we're really grateful. It's terrific. All right, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Anybody?
So move.
Okay, Cinda, seconded by, I just
Dennis.
lost you, hold on. By Dennis. Let me just write that down. At 11:51. That's a long one for us.
It is. That's good, though. It was interesting.
All right, well, thank you very much. We'll see you all next month.
Thank you
Okay.
for this
All right,
weekend.
take
That's
care.
Thanks. Bye.
Okay, bye.